'Tis the season for Christmas cards. This whole video will be about painting Christmas cards, and so if you like watching watercolor painting, this is a great video for you. I hope you enjoy it. Hi YouTube friends. Well, I'm painting today because it's the day before the Christmas Bazaar that I'm taking my products to, and so I'm making a new sign. This was the little sign that I had done to advertise my prints, my little print cards and packs, and it's just kind of junky looking, so I thought I would paint myself a sign. All my other signs are painted and they look more like this. I've hand painted these, sorry about that reflection. So I thought I would, and I'm not making insect repellent bars right now, so I thought I would make a little sign for my cards, my print cards. And I started doing something. I thought I would share it with you because it's looking kind of good. So I thought I'd put a little frame around this little sign, but this would also work on a 5x7 card, and I'm gonna do this because I'm loving how it turns out. I did buy a few watercolor pencils, and they work like pencils, but they also work like watercolors. So when you mark on a piece of paper, a piece of watercolor paper, it looks like a colored pencil. It just looks like this, okay? But when you add water to it, it functions like a little bit like watercolor. And so I used that green one I just showed you with a little bit of a ruler. I just did this kind of thing and measured a little bit and got myself a box. And then I'm taking a wet brush and just carefully dabbing on the outside only. And you could do it on both sides, or you could do it on the inside if you like. But I just wanted a little bit of a green shadow on the edge of this. You could work at it until there was none of the watercolor pencil left, actually, if you wanted. I kind of like the idea of a little bit of a frame. I use these watercolor pencils for all kinds of stuff. I have some very light colored ones, like a pale pink and a silver and a gold, and you can draw any shape you like on your watercolor paper, and then it's rather than a real pencil, which you can't get rid of once you paint over it, the pencil mark is just there. This watercolor pencil, you can really get it to go away. Now this is a really dark one. I got a dark one on purpose recently because I thought green would be a useful color to have. Sometimes you can also fix things in a watercolor if you have just need a little bit of pigment. It's just things you can't fix with regular paint because it's too little or too delicate. Sometimes you can put a little bit of watercolor in there, watercolor pencil. So I'm really liking this look. It is a little time consuming. If I could apply water all over that line or do on the inside, I'd be able to get rid of it more, but I'm really liking the look of this. Here, let's see what you think. See? It's just a shadow of green around the outside. I've got one side left to do, and then we'll see. The lettering, I'll just do, how have I been doing that? I don't really remember. I think I also used a watercolor pencil to do lettering, and then kind of just paint with regular paint over top of it. I have to remind myself how I did that. I don't always remember how I do various things that work well. Then I look back at something I painted months ago and thought, I really like that, but I don't remember how I did it. That's a skill I should learn, is to be able to look at something and discern how it's been done. That's very useful. Okay. I think I'm about done with that. I could work at that for a long time. The other thing you can do is you can get a clean brush and go over the far edge where it's pretty pale, and it will just blend right into the white and there won't be any line at all. This is almost like a cucumber color. Okay, I'm going to need to let that dry before I start working on the inside because I don't want to smear it with my hand. All right, not too bad. Okay, while that little sign is drying, I'm going to paint a new card. This is one that I sold yesterday to a customer that came to my house, and she bought 10 cards, and so I am going to repaint as many of those as I can today before I go to the bazaar. Okay, so I'm not going to talk while I do this because I don't think I can do both of those things. This is a size 6 Neptune Princeton brush. And the color is Hooker's Green. Watercolor is very forgiving as long as you continue to work with it when it's wet. I like a round brush. I'm leaving a little bit of white along here so that it looks like light shining on the curve of the candle. And I'm looking at, oh, you know, I got them backwards, but that's okay, doesn't matter. This one was red in the previous painting, but it doesn't matter. I'm looking at a photograph that I took of the previous candle that I've already sold, just as a reference. Although when I did it, I didn't have anything to look at, so just gives you a little bit of confidence when you know that a card has turned out well before. You can look at that card. Okay, looks pretty good. Now I'll do a red one behind it. Now when I'm cleaning out my brush, I do dab it onto a little bit of paper towel to make sure that it's really clean and I'm not transferring some of that green into my red. Now I could wait and let that completely dry. I didn't do that last time. I just went ahead and launched in and then later did a little touch up, and it seemed it worked okay. It worked okay. I do want to give a three-dimensional effect where one candle is behind the other. And they need to be generally the same shape. is useful to load your, to get the right consistency of paint. Not too wet, not too thick. And then load your brush well the first time so you don't have to continually reload, because that costs you time and allows your paint to dry and makes it harder to work with. Now if I touch this red to the green directly, they will bleed together. I'm so tempted to do that just so you can see it. Oh, I almost did it right there. But you really don't want these two colors to bleed into each other, or else it could be very difficult to correct it, and might even be impossible to correct it. I apologize for that background noise. That's my fan blowing, and it's blowing on my soap to help it cure a little faster. So I have it running most of the time. Now, in the one I did yesterday, the overlap was a little deeper. The more overlap you have, the better it looks. But I don't want to go too far. I'm gonna mess up the shape of my red candle. And then later on, when it's all dry, I can come back in with a very fine brush and I can actually get it even closer. Although that really, that's enough right there. Okay. Now at this point I am going to let it dry thoroughly before I finish it. And I'll try to remember to share a photograph of the other one I did so you can see. But here's a little bit more of a close-up. Okay, so that's what I got so far. I do have a hair dryer that I'll often use to help dry something a little faster. I don't like to dry the whole painting with it, like I wouldn't use it on those candles. But if I have something I just want to make sure it's pretty much dry, like something that was not really, really wet like this, then I'll use it. Okay, one big challenge for me when I'm doing any kind of lettering is making sure it's not sloping down. So I'm going to give myself a very, very faint line with, this is a pink watercolor pencil. Okay, very faint. Let's speed this part up just a little bit since it's only lettering. Okay, so a little bit of lettering like that, and then I'll just go over it with a brush and paint, and maybe put a little flower or something at the bottom. We'll see about that. I think I'll use my, now this is a junky, I think this is a size 2 though. It's a pretty good point. Got some Neptunes like that, but I'm saving them. So I'm going to use a dark green over the green watercolor pencil and a red over, I kind of did a lot of green. I got carried away. Lettering is rather time consuming, but I do like how my signs look when they're, when I do them myself. I used to have a printer, and I would print my signs off. I'd make a document and print them off. And then our printer died. But I kind of like painting my lettering. It makes me feel like I'm some kind of a monk illustrator back in the Middle Ages. It's ridiculous, but still. And yeah, I think we'll speed this part up too. This is just painting lettering, not as fun as the other cards. Okay. There's the basic lettering. I really, really like that outline. What do you think? Kind of fun? I might put little holly berries or something on the bottom. Some kind of a little flower. We'll see. Maybe a bow. Okay, so that's it for now. And we will move back to, let's see if this is dry. Yeah, it looks pretty dry. Well, we might as well proceed now. See, I'm looking at this brush that I laid down, and I can see that it has red in it. I have to be really, 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 really careful. See, this is a moment when I might bring in my blow dryer just to polish that off and make sure that it's all dry. Oh, I made the same mistake on this one I did on the last one, darn it. See how that goes. Okay. Yeah, okay, so let me show you what I did. I'm going to have the top of the candle where the wick is coming out will be a continuation of kind of a long, elongated oval. And I need to have that here, but see how I didn't leave space for it? I've got this red meeting the green right here. And on the last candle, you really can't see it, but the colors were reversed. But this color kind of bled into the gray that I'm going to use for the top of the candle. So I might go in ahead of time and try to clean out some of this red. And I call that scrubbing. I think a lot of artists do. They call it scrubbing. You get a slightly damp, not very damp, brush, and you go into the little area you want and you just scrub. You try to make sure that you don't spread it anywhere. You're just trying to lift pigment off of that spot. And it is amazing if you are careful and persistent how much pigment you can get off. You can sometimes, now the red would be difficult, but sometimes you can get it down to where it's almost white again if you're careful. You have to be certain not to use anything else but a paintbrush to do this kind of scrubbing, or else you will damage your watercolor paper. I've done that before. I thought, oh, I'll just use a paper towel. Oh my goodness, that was a mistake. Okay, so let me show you how much I was able to scrub out of there. See that little white spot above the green candle where they meet? It's now a lot paler. So now I have to let that dry, okay? So that was a mistake on my part that's now costing me time. It doesn't matter. I'm going to put this aside and go on to another card. Now, I am not always organized, and I have photographs on my phone. I was hunting for my phone. It's like, where have I put my phone? Well, it's sitting right there, and it's you. It's sitting in my tripod. So I've got some pictures on my phone that I haven't put onto my laptop yet, and it would be nice to be able to look at them, but I'm not going to stop in the video and go do that. So I'm going to try to remember how I did this. But one color I need right now is permanent red, and this is one of my Mission Gold colors I use a lot. I haven't bought a new one of it, but it's getting kind of low, so I'm going to put some more in my permanent red spot. I'm not really out, but I don't like to get low. You really don't want to get low in the middle of painting something. So I just put a little bit more in there. Okay, now this one we're going to paint is going to be a red and white polka dotted ribbon with a bow and some candles in the middle. This is a little nerve-wracking. Some painting really is nerve-wracking. Alright, now we have to get this new permanent red to the right consistency. It's real gloopy. Oh my goodness, it's all up in my brush. But considering I do want a lot of it, but I don't want it that thick. I just really hate to dip my paintbrush back into the water because I know I'm taking good paint and putting it in that water and I'll never get it back. Okay, last time I did this, I do not think I got it centered very well. So I'm going to take my pink watercolor pencil. I mean, I eyeball this, which is fine. But I just want to make sure that it's not wonky. So I'm going to it's a ribbon, so it's not like a perfect oval. That's not really the point. Man, I've got to get some more water in there. Let's use a different brush. hate wasting paint. I'm not that finicky about it, but I'm a little finicky. Okay, let's see if we can let's get a bow first. The bow is more important. So I do the middle of the bow. Dab some around there in a general middle of the bow shape. Okay, reasonably happy with that. Okay, and then I think I had ribbon hanging down, and I have so much extra pigment here. I'm gonna use some of it, and one reason that's helpful is that it'll take less time for it to dry, for goodness sake. I don't really like the look of it. It looks more like a creature from the back lagoon with all those, I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. All right. Now I've got a little bit of a guideline here for doing these side ribbons. I probably should have used my larger brush, but this one will do. And I'm pushing down and lifting up to get those wide and narrow spots. And I'm going to go back and work on it more later. You see those little pale spots on the ribbon? There's a couple of them so far, and I'm about to get another one right there. That's where I made those little marks with the watercolor pencil. So they do interfere. If you try to paint right over those, they will interfere with your paint absorption into the paper. Okay, now I'm going to go back and fiddle with this. But if you scrub it a little bit with some paint, it will do fine. So I'm going to do that. And here's another, there's just going to be various light and dark areas. One thing you want to do is to keep the thin spots thin, because that's the spot where the apparent ribbon is twisting and turning, and you really want that look. The thumpy sound of music in the background is my daughter leaving her car. 'Tis the generation of loud thump banging music in the car. All right. But I must say, I afflicted my children for so many years with classical music and Christmas music in the car that, you know, they're entitled to their music too. Okay. I love the ribbon. I'm not real fond of this bow. I really don't like the streamers on the bow. Don't know what I was thinking, but I don't like it. they really should be coming more out of the middle, and why I did them all in a row. But I'm picky about stuff that way. I'm very particular about how I want it to be, but then I'll go ahead and take it to try to sell it. And I'm always amazed at the people who will come and buy things that I think are ugly and they think are beautiful. No, I just dropped the brush. I'm all the time splattering paint and water on my cards and dropping extra brushes on my cards. Okay, so here is the ribbon. And it looks pretty nice. What looks really good is when I take my... Oh, just dropped it. This is my list of cards that I need to paint before tomorrow, hopefully. Anyway, this is my Jelly Roll 10 white. Anything else on there you need to know? Sakura, made in Japan. Anyway, I use this for snowflakes. This does little teeny drops, and it's really perfect once this is fully dry. Again, it's really perfect for little white polka dots. And I mentioned that to the lady who came to buy my cards yesterday, and she said, "Oh, I know. That polka dotted ribbon was the thing that caught her attention." So today I want to do lots of red and white polka dotted ribbons because I think it might appeal. All right, so we're going to let this dry. This is what I do a lot when I do these cards. Okay, so I think I'll use this one. Now I want a very understated color for the top of these candles. And I have, in the middle of my watercolor palette here, I'll tilt it this way, I have all these colors around from the Mission Gold set, and then I have a few extras, and one of the extras is a Payne's Gray. And I love Payne's Gray. It blends with some other colors and gives you very muted tones. I love it with the, this is olive green. These two together do all kinds of wonderful things. So I'm going to just use a little bit of very light Payne's Gray. Not too wet. Let's do this one first. I don't want it too dark. It's important to remember that the goal of watercolor is to give a suggestion of the item. So these are suggestions of candles. They are not supposed to be exactly the candle. And once you give a suggestion, then the person's mind fills in the rest. Okay. I'm going to get a little closer if I can. Even though the red and green paint is dry, it's still possible for it to bleed if you touch, yeah, like right there. If you touch it with too much liquid. And once it starts to bleed, oh my goodness, it will. Now you can sometimes slow it down by holding the card this way. Because gravity pulls that paint down, and so it won't run quite as much. But yeah, it can be tricky when you're working with little stuff. Let's look and see what we've got. Okay, so down here you can see what I'm doing, trying to get that gray, tuck it in there, and I'm going to come back later with some red when it's very dry and polish that off. And you can see what's happening in this top corner here and how it bled just a little bit. I'll probably need to finish that off later too. Okay, so let's let that dry. I don't want to make this too Christmassy because this is a sign I'm probably going to use quite often. So let's just do some little flowers and some leaves. Let's do some blue. Something blue. I'll make sure I don't touch that red because I just feel like it would run into that blue. Because this is pretty damp blue. I forget which blue. It's not cobalt blue and it's not ultramarine. It's whatever the other one is. I'll look in a second, see if I can find it. Here's a little flower hiding behind that one, and here's one hiding behind that one. Okay. Let's see. Let's put that permanent red back. Oh, cerulean. That's cerulean blue. I have cerulean, cobalt, and ultramarine deep are my, and then I have a peacock blue. I don't use it very often, but it's kind of fun. Okay, now I got to let that dry before I add a little bit of yellow in the middle and some leaves. So I don't want it all to run together. Okay, well, we could work on this one a little bit again. I'm going to do some candles. Boy, I don't know. The other one I did candles right here, but that don't really have room. I have more room on the side. Wonder what I should do. I gotta think about that. Okay, I better think. Well, that's probably enough card painting. Oh my goodness, you've watched a lot of this. Let me get this one dry and I'll finish it up so you can see it. Okay, that's probably pretty dry. Now I've got a lemon yellow, and then I've got kind of a slightly deeper yellow, and then an even deeper yellow. This is, what are they? I don't know. This is an orange, this is more of a dark yellow, this is kind of a little bit dark yellow, and there's my lemon yellow, which didn't come in this set, but I bought it separately. Okay. When you have purple or blue flowers, yellow really looks pretty in the middle. And I just dap a few dots in there. A lot of people who watercolor, they make it look so easy, and I'll tell you the hard thing they're doing that you can't see is they are deciding when to stop. It's really important to know when to stop. And now we'll use a little bit of sap green for some leaves on this. It needs to be a little bit wet. Leaves often are done by just pointing the tip and pressing to make them. This is not the best. This is that B watercolor paper, and it's not the best. My cards are painted on Strathmore Watercolor, and that is better. Arches would be the best, although Arches, I don't think, I've never seen Arches cards. Okay. So, there you go. That'll be my new sign advertising my prints, and I'll put it inside of this plastic thing here. So it'll look like this and sit near my prints, and it'll look a whole lot better than that one. Which I can now do this too. Okay, I just can't resist showing you this other technique. Let me see, I want to try to get you closer in. I know you haven't really been able to watch. This will be upside down, so I apologize. Okay, but I love doing little flames. And I use, let me see, we'll use the darkest yellow first. The flames, of course, rest above each candle. And so I'm going to go ahead and do them because they won't touch what's drying, okay? So the way you do a flame is you pick the right spot. Can you see? Hope you can see. Okay, and you kind of do the shape of a large flame. And this is where you see the nature of watercolor. I'm going to put some clean water around the outside of that. And that paint will flow into, it's a little bit more than I wanted. It'll flow into the area where the water is, and it will not flow into the area where the water isn't, which is kind of nice. Okay. And I could just use water, honestly, from here on. I don't have to use it. Sometimes I'll add a fainter yellow and then a fainter yellow after that to have the color change. But that was nice and dark from the beginning. You could even feasibly start with an orange. I'm going to add a little bit more, and you can really see it. Yeah. There's a little bit more water than I prefer. Ooh. I don't want it to touch that red, but I do want it to. A lot of it is knowing, really, a lot of watercolor painting is knowing exactly how much water to have and how much pigment to have. And it's just so much practice to figure that out. Okay, so there you have a nice little flame. And now we'll do the other one. We'll have to lift some of that water off of there. And let's get some of this water from over here. Okay. Well, this time I'm going to try to do a better job of not getting quite so much. Well, just getting the right amount of pigment. I started out with too much, took some away, and then had to add some later. That's just not a good thing. See, it looks outrageously big when you start, but when you start adding everything, it looks just right. Now I'm just adding water, and wherever I lay the water, the pigment will flow into. If you do watercolor, you know that's the fundamental principle of watercolor, is that wherever you lay water, the pigment will flow into, if the pigment is wet as well. And wherever you don't have water, the wet pigment will not go. Okay. Now I'll let that dry, and then I'll come back in and use just a little, very fine line and draw a little watercolor line down into the candle, which is the wick. And I kind of like to have something more down here, but I don't know what. So anyway, it's placed a little bit high. I wish it were a little bit lower on the card, but I do like the look of that. Yeah, see, when I tilt it like this, it all flows down, and then I tilt it back up and it all runs around. Okay, all right. Yes, I thought I wanted something on the bottom of that card, and I put it on there, and I think I ruined that card. It's supposed to be like a tartan tablecloth. I really don't know if that works. And I wanted to show you what happened with this card. I decided to put a little assortment of presents down there, but they just didn't look like much. It's kind of a Charlie Brown Christmas card, if you know what I mean. And then I thought to add a little something simple like a string of lights, and I really think that that worked well. It gives it a really cutesy look. Still Charlie Brown, but maybe better. And here's the Christmas Bazaar. This is my table, and I really took everything, including a few woven scarves. All my cards were out, and soaps and lotions. Had a pretty good day, and sold a lot of stuff. I got to meet some of the other vendors, and that was a lot of fun. Really nice people. We set up in the school gymnasium, and especially around lunchtime, we had a pretty good crowd. I actually bought some candles from some of these ladies. That was really lovely. And nobody else was selling art, which really, I think, was nice to have something that was unique. Thanks for joining me for this video, and I hope you try painting some cards yourself. Even if it's just a few, you could send them to some of your special friends this year.